We affirm the following resolution. Resolved. In the United States, one day a year should be set aside as a national holiday for election voting. Therefore, our framework should be based on whichever side proves their system is more democratic wins. Contention 1. Increase voting turnout. First, note that having a holiday would increase voting turnout. According to Kristen Clark, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law, making an election day a holiday would transfer the culture around voting in our country and most likely inevitably improve turnout and participation rates across the board. Enduring long lines, obtaining access to childcare, finding the money to take public transportation to the polls are all real barriers that make it harder for people to exercise their vote on election day. By clearing away some of these hurdles, we would inevitably make it easier for people to participate. Having more voters will help democracy. According to the editorial board for the New York Times, higher turnout is a good thing. It reaffirms the essence of the democratic process, and it tends to help candidates who are both reasonable and more representative of the public at large. True that when more people vote, the electorate becomes more liberal. If Americans voted in proportion to their actual numbers, a majority would support a vision for the country far different from that of Mr. Trump and the Republicans in Congress. Democracy isn't self-activating. It depends on citizens getting involved and making themselves heard. An increase of democracy is good because it is good for people's health. According to Mark Rice Oxley from The Guardian, democracy is good for your heart, health, and longevity. A major study of 170 countries has concluded. Free and fair elections appear important for improving adult health, most likely by increasing government accountability and responsiveness. Life expectancy at 15 was 3% higher in countries 10 years after the transition to democracy than in counterparts that had not changed government type. Cardiovascular disease, tuberculosis, transport injuries, and non-communicable diseases also fell. Between 1994 and 2014, the increases in democratic experience resulted in 60 million fewer deaths of cardiovascular disease globally. Contention 2. Lack of voting hurts specific populations. By not declaring voting a national holiday, we are hurting those who are less fortunate. By targeting a specific group in America, we are skewing the voting odds because often certain groups of people, ethnic or economic, tend to vote for the same candidate. So by not allowing/creating ways for them to vote, the president may not be who America really wants. According to Abigail Hess, writer at CNBC, said that these shifts mean traditional voting practices don't work for many Americans. For instance, weekday voting is disproportionately difficult for single parents and those who work multiple jobs, according to those who support making Election Day a national holiday. Clearly not declaring Election Day a national holiday, we are directly impacting certain populations of people who may share similar political views. Thus, this would increase inequality, going on to my next point. Not declaring voting day a national holiday would increase inequality, which would increase social justice and decrease the U.S. economy. According to Josh Bivens, Director of Research at the Economic Policy Institute, said that income inequality in the United States is suppressing growth in aggregate demand spending by households, businesses, and governments by shifting an ever larger share of income to rich households that save rather than spend. EPI estimates that raising inequality has slowed growth in aggregate demand by 2 to 4 percentage points of GDP annually in recent years. Clearly, inequality doesn't improve our economy. We stated clear and direct evidence explaining how this inequality directly affects the GDP. 2 to 4 percentage points isn't a small number. It's when it's of $19.4 trillion. So to decrease this loss, we need to implement ways for inequality to dissipate, and declaring voting a national holiday is one. Thank you.